This program is brought to you by 3C TV. Like what you learned? Visit our website or follow us on Facebook and Twitter to keep up on the latest 3C TV programs.
Hi, I'm Lynn Mann, presenting to you Word 2010 Formatting Documents. You might ask, isn't formatting a document that MLA or APA style? And if that's the case, unless I'm still in school writing term papers, then won't this video be useless to me? The short answers are MLA and APA styles aren't the only types of formatting a document, and of course this video will be useful to you. Formatting a document is the setting of the characteristics of the text, paragraph, and page of the document to have the look and feel that you want to convey to your reader. Whether you need to write a report for school or present information in professional style to your employer or a client, the steps to set up your Microsoft Word 2010 document are the same. Let's start with a blank document. Believe it or not, Word 2010's default blank document is loaded with formatting. Some of the default settings are: the margins are set to 1 inch all around, the normal text is Calibri 11-point font size, text alignment is to the left, page orientation is portrait, the paper size is standard letter 8.5 by 11 inch, so on and so forth. There are many default settings involved with a blank document. Sometimes these default settings aren't the look we want for the document, so let's begin changing some of the formatting properties. But before I do, I'll quickly create some random generated text for demonstration. It'd be a lot easier to see the changes if there's text on the page. All I need to do is type equal, rand, and then tell it how many paragraphs I want, let's say 10, and how many lines per paragraph, let's say 15. Now, if I used lorem, L-O-R-E-M, instead of rand, that would give me random text in Latin, but I'll stay with English. That looks good. Let's start with setting our margins. As I mentioned, by default, top, bottom, left, and right margins are 1 inch, which, if you do happen to need to follow the MLA or APA styles, these are the correct settings. But perhaps you're developing a report which will need to be printed and tape bound. You realize that tape binding will eat away at some of your inner margins. So to counteract this problem, we want to set the side margins so that when you print the document, you'll have a little bit of extra space on the left for odd pages and the right for even pages. This will accommodate binding or hole punching very nicely. So on the Page Layout tab, in the Page Setup group, I'm going to click Margins, and then I'm going to go down to Mirrored. Now, on the odd pages, we have a 1 1/4 inch for the left margin and a 1 inch for the right margin, and on the even pages, it will be the opposite, 1 1/4 inch on the right and 1 inch on the left. If 1 1/4 inch margin isn't enough space, we can change it by customizing the setting. So on the Page Layout tab in the Page Setup group, I'm going to go back to Margin, but this time choose Custom Margin. And since we already selected Mirrored, the settings for Mirrored are already here. I just want to change the inside margin from 1 1/4 inch to about maybe 1.5 inches. That definitely looks like it will give us enough space. Mirrored setting works well with justified text alignment and looks very clean when printed and bound. Currently, the alignment to the text is left, which means the left side margin is straight while the right hand will fluctuate depending on how Word 2010 word wraps the lines. Let's change the alignment to justified, which that means it will have a straight alignment on the left and on the right. Word 2010 will add spacing to the line so the right-hand side lines up perfectly with the margin. To change the text alignment to justify, we do need to tell Word 2010 which text to apply the changes. To quickly select the entire document, I can either hold down Control and click A, or I can go to the left-hand margin and triple-click. If I single-click, that selects a line. If I double-click, that will select the paragraph, and a triple-click selects the whole document. Now that the document text is selected, I'm going to go to the Home tab, and in the Paragraph group, I'm going to click on the justified icon. Now you see that the left side is straight as well as the right side. Word 2010 only changes the spacing of the word so it fills each line, but some readers find this alignment difficult to read. So we might consider having Word 2010 hyphenate the end words to eliminate some of the extra spacing and improve its readability. Since hyphenation applies to the text, we need to be sure we've selected the text first. And then we can do the hyphenation. So again, I'm going to select the whole document, triple clicking. And on the Page Layout tab, in the Page Setup group, I'm going to select Hyphenation, and then Automatic. I'm going to allow Word 2010 to decide where the best hyphenation markers should go. As you see, that eliminated some of the excess spacing, and it will help improve its readability. We can also change the spacing of the paragraphs, including line spacing and the space before and after paragraph marks. The default paragraph settings are 1.15 for line spacing, which is slightly over a single space, and 10 points added after a paragraph marker, which that separates the paragraphs just a little. So let's change the line spacing to double spacing, but leave the spacing between the paragraphs as is. If I don't select the entire document, then when I make my changes, it will only apply to the current paragraph, wherever my cursor is. If I want the entire document double-spaced, then I'll need to select all the text before making any of my setting changes. I'll apply the double spacing just to this paragraph. So on the Home tab, in the Paragraph group, I can either click on Line Paragraph icon and select 2, or I can expand and launch the Paragraph dialog box and change the line spacing to double. It's also here that I can select some indentation. I can select a first line indentation and a hanging indentation. So currently the first paragraph is double spaced. Let me show you what a first line indentation is. What that means is that Word will move the first line of the paragraph away from the left margin to the specified distance. Whereas a hanging indent is the opposite. The first line actually stays to the margin and the rest of the lines are indented. So I'm going to select this paragraph and I'm going to go to Paragraph, launch my dialog box. First line, by default it's a 1/2 inch and I'll go ahead and leave it at a 1/2 inch. That's the example of a first line indent. Let's go down to the next paragraph. I'm just going to click inside the paragraph anywhere. Go up to Paragraph, change to Hanging Indentation, and again, by default, it's a 1/2 inch. That's fine. I'm going to say OK. There is definitely a difference between first line indentation and hanging indentation. Now let's say for the hanging indentation, I actually needed 1 inch. For whatever reason, I needed 1 inch. So I can go back to Home, Paragraph group, launch my dialog box, and right here by the default I can change it by either using the arrows or let's say I want 1/4 of an inch. I can say 0.25 and say OK. Currently, all the pages in the document are portrait orientation, which means it's taller than it is wider. But what if one of the pages had a graphic or a chart or some other information that would be better displayed on a page that was landscape orientation? Can we do this? Mind you, we don't want to change all the pages, just one page. And the answer is yes, we can. I'll choose the second page, for example. And this paragraph with the hanging indentation, let's say I want that on a page all by itself in landscape view. So the first thing that I will need to do is tell Word where to start and stop the landscaped orientation. So I want to place a few continuous breaks in my document. The first one is going to go right at the beginning of my paragraph. So right at the beginning of the paragraph, I want to go to the Page Layout, Page Setup, breaks, and there's several breaks to choose from, but I want a continuous break, which is also AKA a section break. I'm going to place that there, and you can't really see that it's there, so let me go to the Home tab and turn on all characters so you can see, indeed, there is a section break right there. And right now, if I applied to this page landscape orientation, it's going to keep a couple of the pages portrait, but it's going to change everything below it to landscape. So let me show you that. I go to page layout, orientation, and landscape. You'll see the first couple pages. Anything above my break will still be portrait, but everything after it is landscape. So I don't want to do that. I'm going to do a Control Z. So what I need to do is, again, tell Word to tell it where to stop the landscaping. So at the beginning of the next paragraph, I'm going to put in another section break. So page layout, page setup, breaks, and then a continuous section break. Now I'm going to jump inside this paragraph anywhere, and I'm going to say orientation, landscape. Now as you see, above it is portrait, this page is landscape, and the rest of the pages are portrait. Now if I decide later on I don't need this page to be landscape, you don't want to just click into the paragraph and set it back to portrait. Because you have those section breaks, other things can happen. Maybe you need to page numbers very specifically, but anyway, the best thing you can do is actually just delete the section breaks. So I'm going to go right next to the section break and hit delete. And I'm going to go right underneath the other one and hit delete. Now my document is all in portrait orientation again. Let's review what we've done. We started with a blank document, but it really wasn't quite blank. It was set up with many default formatting settings, including, but not limited to, margins, the orientation, and the font. We manipulated the margins, the text alignment, the paragraph spacing, and the page orientation. What are themes and styles, you ask? A theme is a set of formatting choices that can be applied to the entire document. It includes theme colors and fonts and effects, whereas style is a predefined combination of font style and color and size of the text that can be applied to a selected text. Well, that kind of sounds like the same thing, so let's put it in action to see the difference. Even though this document is just random text, you can see it's a bit boring to look at, and let's face it, if a document is boring to look at, it could influence our reader to stop reading. We could change the look by changing maybe the font type or the font color, but instead, let's enhance the whole document by bringing in a theme and using styles. We'll be able to see more of the changes of a theme if we apply styles first and then choose a theme. So let's add a few elements like a title, subtitle, some paragraph headings, and maybe a quote or even perhaps a book title. I'm not following any specific formal formatting like MLA or APA. I'm just going with what I like so I can apply some built-in styles that Word 2010 provides us. So at the beginning of my document, I'm going to put in a title of maybe Word 2010, and then maybe a subtitle of formatting documents. That makes sense. And then I'll need some paragraph headings. So instead of you watching me, I'm going to throw these in pretty quickly and pop back on. Now that those elements are in our document, it's still not that nice looking or, in fact, easier to read. In fact, I just think I cluttered it up. But if we apply some styles, then, number one, the elements will have a visual pop, and two, it will give our eyes a much needed break from the monotony of the text. First, I'm going to highlight the words Word 2010. And on the Home tab in the Styles group, I'm going to tell Word 2010 that it is a title. So it applied some nice formatting and called it a title. Secondly, I'm going to highlight Formatting Document, and since that's a subtitle, again in the Styles group, I'm going to select Subtitle. Now, for this insert, this is a heading, and I have several choices for heading. Heading 1, 2, in fact, There's headings 3, 4, 5. I mean, there are a boatload that you can choose from. So if I scroll down, there's a bunch of styles I can choose from. But I think I just want this a heading 1. What 1 means is that it's in a hierarchy. 1 is the highest level, then think of 2, 3, 4 as subheadings after that. I'm going to go down and find galleries and say that's a heading 1, and perhaps this one I'm going to say it's a heading 2. Lastly, I have a quote in here from Mark Twain, and I'll say that is indeed a quote. And here's a book title right here, so I'm going to say that's a book title. All of these styles are built in under this particular style grouping. If I want to change the overall style of styles, I can go up to Change Styles, and there is some style sets I can choose. Right now, it's the default black and white, but there are several nice ones from Distinctive, Elegant, Fancy, all the way down to Word 2010 even has its look. So I'm going to choose one of these that I like. Distinctive's kind of nice. But let's say I'll go with Traditional. Whichever one you do choose, you do want to match the document with the document style. Some are more bold, some are more subtle, so it does depend on what fits your paper. Now the style I applied to actual text on the page. So now let's apply a theme. A theme will change the overall font type, the color scheme, the size of the font, and even some attributes that our styles were previously applied, but it does keep the general look and feel. So on the page layout in the themes, I'm going to open up themes. And you see there is a couple dozen that we can choose from. So I'm just going to see which one I like the best. And you see the text changes, some of the colors change, some of the words are in different font, size of font. It still kind of keeps the general look and feel, but it does change some of the feel. I'm going to choose newsprint. Now I like newsprint, but I'm not really crazy about the color, and this font is a little bit, I don't know, blurry to me. So I can change those attributes. I can go up to colors, and I can select a color scheme that I like better than the one that goes along with the theme by default. So I kind of am partial to blues, but maybe a little something more dramatic. I don't know. Let's just choose one. Also, the font. I wasn't crazy about the font. So by this one, we have all kinds of font sets that we can choose from. And I'm just going to choose one. Oh, that one looks much better. I can see that insert is actually insert and not some pushed in. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that font set. We have a third way of customizing our themes, and it's by effects. And now right now it's not going to do anything, but for example, if I was to insert some type of shape, and I'm just going to put one out there so you can see it, and I go over to page layout and the effects, you'll see by changing the effects, it changes the shape. Like the Foundry put a little bit of a border on it. The Executive, it changed it just slightly. I mean, they're very subtle, but they're different in the formatting of it. So I'm just going to pick one of these. I could also select just like that. But I don't need the shape, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it. Now, what if the next time I write a paper or a report, I need to use this particular theme, even the way that I have customized it? Well, I do have the capability of going back up to themes and saying Save Current Theme. And then it's kind of a personal theme, so I'm just going to say my theme 1. And that theme will be available to me the next time that I open up my Word 2010 on my machine. Don't count on it being on a different machine. It will just be on your machine. You should take into consideration if the document is going to be printed or if it's going to be read primarily on a computer monitor. Font makes a big difference in readability. It's recommended that if a document is going to be printed, then to use serif font. And if the document is going to be primarily read on a monitor screen, then use a sans serif font. So what's the difference? Well, serif is a small line attached to the end of the stroke of a letter, and sans serif does not have the small line. Still confused? All right, let's see an example. So I opened up a new document and I typed "on top of the world." The first "on top of the world" is in Times New Roman, which is a serif font. You see the little tails at the end of the letter stroke. And then the second one is Arial, which is a sans serif font. Now, using a serif for printed and a sans serif for electronic delivery is just a recommendation. But for the MLA and APA formats, you must use Times New Roman 12-point font. Lastly, I'd like to mention about themes is if we add a graphic, chart, smart art, which this is a smart art, word art, or even a picture. All of these elements can be in the theme colors and again looks like a cohesive part of the document. For example, if I decide to go ahead and change the colors once again, you'll see that my smart art goes along right with the theme colors. And likewise, since I set the picture to have a theme color, it changes as well. Let's review what we learned. Styles are applied to text within the document, whereas a theme is applied to the overall document to give it a cohesive appearance to the text and objects. We applied headings, quotes, and book titles, and customized selecting the type of styles of the styles. And we applied a theme, customizing the theme by changing the color and the font set. Headers and footers are that area at the top and bottom of each page in a document. It provides important background information. These include such things as page numbers, dates, book and chapter titles, and perhaps even the author's name. All of these can improve the usability of the document. In Microsoft Word 2010, there are 5 options when it comes to headers and/or footers. We can insert the same header footer on each page. We can make the first page header or footer different from the rest of the pages. We can use no header or footer on the first page. We can make the header or footer different from odd and even pages. And lastly, we can make the header or footer different for each section or chapter of our document. Before we get started on building our header footer, it's important to note that if we enter the text and graphic in the default header or footer, it is automatically left aligned. You might want to center an item or include multiple items, like a left aligned date and a right aligned page number. Since it's automatically left aligned, to center an item across the header footer, you press Tab once, and to align an item along the right margin, press Tab twice. Microsoft Word 2010 also has about 24 or so built-in styles of header-footer pairs. Let's start with one of the built-in headers, then use the matching footer. On the Insert tab, in the header-footer group, I'm going to click on Header. I'm going to select maybe, let's see, there's all different types. Well, I'm going to click on Alphabet. As you see, Alphabet already gives us an information item in our header, the title of the document. You can see a box appear around the label of title. This signifies that this is a document property. And if we want to use this document property of title again, perhaps maybe on a cover page, it will automatically be populated with the title of the document we type in here. Let's have the title of our document, Word 2010 Formatting Documents. Okay, let's go off on a secant line of thought for a moment. I said something about properties of the document, so let me show you what properties are. If you click on your File tab and you go to Info, which is the default, right here are the properties of the document. It includes the size, page, words, how many total editing times, so on and so forth. We can fill in any of this information here in the Backstage view, or we can open up the document panel and enter the information there. Right under Okay, as you see, the author is Lynn. I'm just going to go ahead and say Lynn Mann. The title is there because we typed it into our document property box. We can also put in a subject, some keywords in the event that we had to search for something, category, status, and some comments. There's also some advanced, so there's a lot of general properties and some other things here that you can fill out if you wanted. Now, why would we do that? Well, we can utilize these properties in our header and footer, in the document body, in the cover page, so on and so forth. And by utilizing these document properties, if by chance any of these properties needed to be changed, we only would need to change it in this one location, in the document properties. And then Word would update all the locations where we use that information. It would update it automatically. I'm going to go ahead and close out the document properties panel. Now that the header has information, we want to go to the footer. There are several ways to get to the footer if we're already inside the header. One, we could click on Go to Footer, which will automatically go to our footer and use the same formatting style that we have in the header. Or we can go to Footer and select a different style than what we're using. And then lastly, we can also go to Insert and go to Footer here. So since I'm going to go ahead and use the same one, I'm just going to click on Header Footer and go to Header Footer. Now I popped out of the header originally and went over to the document panel. So I did have to select the footer of Alphabet. But if you didn't do that and you're still in your header and you just jump down to your footer, it does automatically put it in there. As you see, the Alphabet style of footer has some information on it too. One is the page number, which is great because I do want page numbers. And secondly, I can type any text here that I want. Let's say I want the name of my document. I don't want to type the name of my document because it might change. So what I want to do is in the Header Footer Tools under Design, there's something called Quick Parts. Now here's another place that we can insert any of our document properties from an abstract, author, category, so on and so forth down to title. But the file name is an actual field. And there are hundreds of fields that we can put in here that Word 2010 will automatically update. So I'm going to scroll down until I see file name. And we have some options. I can say uppercase, lowercase, first capital title. I'm just going to say no regular formatting. And then if I wanted to add the whole entire path to the file name, this is great if you print out your document, but you want to know where the original file is stored. You can add the path to the file name. So I'm going to go ahead and not do that this time. I just want the file name. I'm going to say OK. So my document is document 1, but here let me save it as a different name. And now that I've renamed my document, I go back down here and I'm going to update my field. And now it's the name of my document. I do have to update the field, but that was real easy versus having to type it in and know what the title of my document is. Okay, by default, Word 2010 puts the header footer on every page. If you use the header, it's going to be on every page of the document. Let me click out of there so you can see. And if you use the footer, it's going to be on every page of the document. Well, that's great, but as you see, I really don't need it on this first page. At least the header I don't need. Perhaps I still want to keep the footer. So what I can do is I can go back inside my header and I want it different on first page. So I'm just going to toggle different on first page, and you see first page header, first page footer. I still want the same first page footer, so I am going to go ahead and click on alphabets. And again, because it's different, it's not connected with the one below, I am going to have to put in my link again. So, but that's a few clicks. Field, scroll down to field, file name. I'm going to say OK. So now all my footers are the same, but my first page does not have a header. I could type in here Buffalo, and now my header is completely different on the first page than on any of the other page, but I don't want my header to be on my first page, so I'm going to leave it blank. Okay, that was the second way. The third was I could have a different header footer on odd pages versus even pages. This is great because perhaps I want the name of my document on the odd pages, but I want the name of the author on the even pages. So I'm going to go back into my header footer, and I am going to go down to my header footer on my second page. I'm going to say different, odd, and even pages. Okay. Here's my first page header. That's still marked as first page header. First page footer, that's completely different. Now I have an even page header. For my even page headers, I want my header to again have the alphabet style, but instead of the title, I'm going to select, I'm going to delete that. I'm going to put the quick parts of document properties. I'm going to say author. Okay, I'm going to click out of that. Now on my second page, I have my author name, and on my odd page, I have the title of my document. Okay. And I do need to fix my footers because, again, the footers go along with even pages versus odd pages. And if I wanted, I could just put the regular alphabet. And again, since it's really quick and simple, I can use the field of file name. Okay. Alrighty. Now, that's great, but what if I actually had chapters in my document and I wanted each of my document chapters to have a different header? So I'm going to remove different odd, even pages because I don't want that anymore. So now I have the same on every page except the first one, remember. So the next way is if I want to divide up my document into chapters or sections, I do need to place section breaks in my document so Word knows, hey, this is a new section. Hey, this is a new section. So I'm going to put in some section breaks in my document. So let's see. It kind of makes sense to have a section break right here. I'm going to say page layout breaks section. Okay. If I want this down on the next page, I can also insert a next page break. But the secret, the magic, is the section break. So I can push that down. And let's go down to the next section, which, let's put one maybe right. That looks like it would be a good place for a section. And I'm going to put page layout break, section break, and I also want this on another page, so I'm going to go ahead and say next page break. So now I have my sections. And I'm going to go back into my header right where it changes. So here's my page 2, and here's my section break, and let me turn on my all characters, so you can see there's definitely a section break there. I'm going to go into my headers, and it says first page header section 3. I can put as same as previous. So let's say right here I want to put in a different section header. But first I need to unlink it with the previous section. So right now it says same as previous. I want to break that link. Once I break that link, I can put any header in here I want. And so I'm just going to put in something else. So you can see that here's this on page 2, which is section 1. There's the header for section 1. Here's section 2 header, or section 3 header, because I have a section break in there somewhere. And then, again, same as previous, I want to break that link. So I can put something else in here, maybe a different style. This is just how you would do for different sections. So for every section, you would have to break the section from the previous, break that link, and then you could put in any header that you want, either the chapter number or whatever you would like in there. Let's review. Headers and footers are the areas on the top and bottom of the page that contain document information, like page numbers, company logos, and so on. We inserted a header footer. We utilized the quick parts and some original text. We used the sections in the document to allow for different headers for each section of the document. We also changed the header of the first page. The use of a cover page, table of contents, table of figures will make our published document more complete and professional looking. A table and contents and a table of figures make it easy for you and your readers to quickly navigate through a section of your document. A cover page is also known as a title page, and depending on what type of document you're composing, whether it's a book, a report, a journal, thesis, an essay, or something else, that will determine what information is included on the cover page. The title of the cover page for a book will usually show the title of the work and the person or the body responsible for its intellectual content, the place of publication, the name of the publisher, and the year of the publication. For essays, it usually includes the title of the work and the author. In case of an academic paper, the cover pages also list not only the author and the text, the title of the work, but also list the class information such as a course name and number, identification information such as a student number, the date, name of a professor, name of the institution. For a thesis cover, this contains the full title of the work, the author's name and academic credentials, the degree granting faculty, the department name, and the name of the university and date of graduation, as well as the universal copyright symbol. For a professional report, cover pages usually contain the title, the date, and the company name, but never is the cover page numbered. Now that we have an idea about what is in the content, let's go build a cover page. I'm not going to build one from scratch. I'll use the power of Word 2010 to utilize one of the built-in cover page styles, and then I'll customize it to suit my needs. On the Insert tab, in the Pages group, click on Cover Page. Now there's about a dozen or so built-in cover page in the gallery, giving us lots of options to choose from. And if none of these are to our liking, we can hover over more cover pages from Office.com, and that will show us what's available on Office.com. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and choose one of the built-in styles. I'm going to choose this one. As you see, it already has some built-in information in here. And again, since we filled out some of our document properties before, the cover page is automatically populated with the title of our document and the author's name. So if I don't like this cover sheet, that's okay. I can go back to Insert, I can go to Cover, and I can select another style and it will automatically change. I'm going to pick Contrast. Alrighty. So here's some cover page. It's not so bad. It does put in our title of our document, but it's a little bit too big for this document. So I'm going to go ahead and change the font. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, just so it fits on the page a little bit better. There we go. That looks a little bit better. I'm even going to add a break in here if I can. Or we can say, well, can bold it. Well, I'll leave it be for now. I might fiddle with it later, color it differently. I can also add an abstract, but if there's no abstract to my document, I can just click on this and say delete. And now I don't need that abstract. I can also right-click on it and go to remove my content control. Okay. So this cover page has some information on it like company name, company address, phone number, fax number, and we can pick a date of when this report is supposed to be due. So I'm going to click a date. Calendar opens up. We'll just pick a date there. Let's say I don't need the fax number, but I do need an email. So what I can do is I can remove this content control, and then I can add a content control just by going to Insert, Quick Parts, Document Property, and going down to Company Email. Now, it doesn't look like it's formatted like the rest of the document, but as soon as I say start typing abc@mmm.com, it will do the same font and style, even though the content control box looks like it's different. So what I do is just I put in the information here. And then maybe a phone number. And my cover sheet is done. But if I don't like how it looks, there are some changes I can make. I can go back to my cover sheet and I can select a different cover sheet. Or I can go back. Let's see. I can change the font in here. And again, the font's a little off for me. So I'm just going to do a different font that I like a little bit better. There we go. And the last thing I want to do is this shade of gray is just a little bit dark for me. So I'm going to go back over to in the drawing tools in the format. I have lots of options to redo this shape and with different colors. These are all my theme colors, so it will go with my document really nicely. So I'm just going to choose one that's not too bold. And the blue is actually not too bad. And I can also do it to the chevron and have some different colors here. Might not change as nicely because it's a different type of object. I think I'll leave it as is. I'll have to ungroup it and then color them separately. And I don't want to take time to do that, but my cover page looks much better with the lighter color. And again, that's just customizing the built-in cover page. Now, if I do decide that later on I don't need a cover page, I can go back to Insert, Cover Page, and I could click on Remove Current Cover Page. But I'm going to go ahead and leave my cover page in my document. The table of contents is a list of the parts of the book or document that is organized in an order which the parts appear. The contents usually include the titles or description of the first level headers, such as chapter titles in longer works, and even includes second level or section titles within the chapters as well. A occasionally even third-level titles. The depth of the detail The depth of the detail in the table of contents depends on the length of the work. The longer the works, having less. Formal reports, 10 pages or more, and being long put into memo or letters also have table of contents. So, first, we want to put our cursor in the place where we want to build our table of contents. So right now, it's at the beginning of the document. So on the References tab, in the Table of Contents, I'm going to click on Table of Contents. There's a couple ways of doing it. There's automatic and there's manual. And then there's also Insert a Table of Contents. That's if you want to completely build a table of contents from scratch. So if I click on Table of Contents, the Table of Contents dialog box pops up, and I have several options to choose from. Number one, I can show page numbers or not. And in this print preview, it gives me an idea of what my preview is going to look at. And we have to remember a lot of documents are built for the web, so this will be the web preview. So if I want the page numbers to show up, it will be in the printed version, but not in the web version. If I want to right align the numbers or not, I can have them right next to each of the new headings, which will be maybe the title of each chapter. That looks a little crowded, so I'm going to leave the page numbers to be right aligned. I can also select the tab leader, which means these dots that go between the header and the number. You can do a straight line, or I could say none at all. That's a little difficult to read, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it as dots. I can also show how many levels I want to show here. So I can show up to 4, 3, maybe just 2. And I can even modify it further. If I say modify, and there's all kinds of different table of contents that are built in, and you'll see all the specs here. Indentation, priority. But I'm going to go ahead and leave that as is and say cancel. I also have some more options. For my heading 1 and 2, I can also include the header. I can say that is level 1. And then I can push down heading 1. I can even put down a footer, maybe even some balloon text, but I'm not going to use these actually. And say OK. And I can build my table now and say OK. Now here's my table of contents. And it's on the first page of my document, and so is my text. So I am going to insert a page break. If I do Control-Enter, that will insert a page break. Now the table of contents will be on the page all by itself. And it looks okay, but it's a bit boring and it's a little troublesome. So I'm going to go ahead and undo my table of contents, and I'm going to use the built-in table of contents, and Word will automatically update these too. So I'm going to say on automatic table, either I say table of contents or I want it to say just contents. And even with the contents and table of contents, I can rename those as well. I want to just say contents. Again, I'm going to insert my page break, so my table of contents are on the page. Now you might be saying, hey, how did it know that insert galleries, quick style, and themes should go into my table of contents? Well, before in my document, I set some heading styles. So insert is a heading 1. Galleries is a heading 1. Quick styles is a heading 2. Themes is a heading 1. And so all of that will go into my table of contents very easily. But let's say I need to add a label here. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and say, I don't know, document. And my document, I'm going to put a heading style. So I'm going to highlight document, go to home, and I'm going to choose which heading it is. I'm going to say heading 1. Now, if I go back up to my table of contents, you'll see it's not there. But I can, right up here, say update table. And it says, well, do you want to update the page numbers only or update the entire table? I'm going to say, well, update the entire table because I have some more labels to put in there. I'm going to say OK. Now Word again scans my document looking for those header types, and it found document, which is on page 6. Now again, if I don't know, right here, for some reason, put in a whole bunch of pages with some information in there, when I go back up to my table of contents, pardon me, the page numbers are incorrect, but since I didn't change any of my headings, I can just say update numbers only and say, okay, now my page is updated. I can also change the look and style of my table of contents and make it a little bit larger. Not too large. Maybe I just want the contents to be a little bit larger. There we go. And it looks pretty good. Of course, if you had a lot more headings in here, and you had a lot more pages, your contents would probably fill up the page. I'm going to show one more thing right underneath this quick page style. Remember, I put in all those blank pages. Quick styles, let's say right here I have another heading of parts. And this heading is a heading number 3. If I scroll up to my table of contents and I update my table of contents, that parts will not update in the table because we didn't select it to go down to heading number 3. But we can go back to our references, table of contents, and we can go back to our insert. We can say how many levels we want and say OK. Yes. Now when we update our table, parts is in there. And here's the cool part about having an electronic version is if I want to jump down to parts, I hold down Control and I click and I jump to that space or that location. It really helps with navigation of an electronic paper. But remember, if you print this out, you can't put your mouse on your printed version and click and go to that space or that location. A table of figures is very similar to a table of contents, but instead of listing the section headings or chapters of the document, it will list all of the figures used in the document. Now, if our document already has figures and tables and maybe some charts or other elements, the first step is done. Our document only has a few things in it, so I'm going to pop over there real quick, cheat a little bit, put some document parts in there, and then I'll be right back. Okay, I've inserted a couple of pictures and or figures or tables or even a chart in the document. So I'm going to start with the first graphic, which is this one. And I'm going to go to References, and I need to mark it saying that it's going to be in my table of figures. So I'm going to say Insert Caption. And by default, it's figure 1. I could label it with figure, table, equation, or I can even select a new label. But figure is fine, and I'm going to say it's a smart art. And I want the position of the caption to be below the item. So I'm going to say OK. Now, by default, the numbering is 1, 2, 3, but I could have said A, B, C, or Roman numerals, but this is fine. I'm going to go to my next picture, but let's say I forget there's a picture in there, and I go to the next one. I say again, go to References, pardon me, Insert Caption. By default, it goes to figure 2, which is fine. And I'll just call it Water Feature. Say OK. And I'm going to go down to the last one. And again, select Insert Caption. And I'm going to say that's my dog Pie. Okay. But remember, I forgot a picture. So I'm going to scroll back up and say, oh, I forgot you, so I want to insert a caption. And Word is super smart. It's going to do it by location of where it is in the document. So this caption is going to be figure 2, and the one that was figure 2 is now 3 and 4, and so on. Okay. And I can resize the box a little bit to make it fit a little bit better. As you see, now that's figure 3. But I have a chart, so I do want to label the chart. So I'm going to insert a caption, but instead of figure, I'm going to insert a new label, and my label is chart. And say OK. So now I have the option of saying an equation, a figure, a table, and a chart. So we'll just say this is a sales chart. And say OK. My numbering's fine. So, and here's a table. So I'm going to click on the table, highlight the table. I'm going to say Insert Caption. And remember, there was a label for table. If there wasn't, I could have said New Label. And we'll just call this Sales Data. It's kind of made up data, but that's okay. It works. I say OK. Now that I have all of my figures, tables, charts labeled, I'm going to go back up to the top right underneath the table of contents, and I'm going to put my table of figures here. Here's the thing that's different between table of figures and table of contents. Table of figures, we have charts, tables, and figures. Each one of those should have a table built for it, and the order of it is up to you. I'm going to do it alphabetically. So first I'm going to build a table of figures, and I'm going to say not the caption label of table, but of charts. And I have some styles here I can choose. I probably should match with my table of contents, but I forgot what my table of contents was, so I'm just going to guess that one. Now I have charts. I'm going to do a table of figures again. This time it's going to be figures. And lastly, table of figures, and this is going to be table. I'm going to say OK. Now, if I add or subtract any of these figures, all I need to do is go back up here, right-click, and say Update, and it will update my figures. For example, if I end up saying I want to change this Smart Art label to Smart Art 2. Then I'm going to go up to my table and update my fields. I'm going to say entire table, and now it says Smart Art 2. Likewise, if I needed to update the pages, I can come up here, right-click, and say Update Table. Or, as long as the table is selected, go into References, Captions, and then Update Table. Let's review what we've done. We inserted a cover page which gives the reader some useful information as well as it completes that professional appearance. We built a table of contents both manually and automatically, and we captioned our non-text objects and created a table of figures, and a table of charts, and a table of tables. If you liked this video, here are more you might want to check out. Until then, I'm Lynn Mann. Be seeing you.